What's going on, everyone? Welcome into this edition of Stuck in the Nosebleeds, part of Stuck in the Catch Fence, where we are previewing the national title game that will take place on Monday night between the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, not just the Irish, the Fighting Irish, versus the Ohio State Buckeyes. My name is Ryan Peters, and I'm joined with the offensive coordinator here in the wonderful state of Indiana at our local high school, Joe Spillman. Mr. Football, Joe Spillman, how are you?
I'm doing great, Ryan. As always, we haven't got together for one of these shows in quite a while, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, the winter hiatus has taken effect. Actually, behind you is a real life representation of what we've been going through.
Mm-hmm.
So that is all coming to an end. Football season's wrapping up, and we're going to start off the 2025. Giving a preview of that, and then by God, we're going into full NASCAR moving forward because we're 1 month away from Daytona. I did upload just a few minutes ago, if you want to check that out, the Chili Bowl, the final 3 laps between Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell, where Kyle Larson decided to make his own groove, one that pretty much was a wall. Pretty amazing finish there, and I figured you guys would enjoy it. No, Joe's not the outcome you wanted with Kyle Larson, but still one hell of a finish between two really good dirt racers.
Yeah, it was it was fun to watch for sure. I didn't get to watch that live, but I did watch the replay, and that was a hell of a finish. That was good stuff.
Yeah, so you'll get all kinds of content like that, and we'll preview the season for NASCAR, the upcoming rule changes. While a guy that's in NASCAR is not allowed to race in the Daytona 500, and the guy that races IndyCar is allowed in, and everything else in this wacky world of NASCAR, including lawsuits, everything.
Yeah.
So, but let's jump into why you came for this show, and that is the national title game. First, let's just talk about how they got there. We're now in a 12-team playoff. Notre Dame and Ohio State did not get the automatic buys. Notre Dame doesn't have a conference, so it was awarded the 7th seed. They went on to open up with Indiana. They were able to beat them. The game's a little bit closer on the score than what it actually indicated. IU not being able to do anything offensively until late in the fourth quarter when it was already in hand. Then Notre Dame went on to play Georgia. Georgia had their backup quarterback, as you know, that Carson Beck ended up hurting his elbow in the SEC championship game. So they used Mr. Stockton, who will be the face of Georgia, because Mr. Beck has transferred to Miami now.
Could be with his girlfriend.
I said, yeah. What's his girlfriend? Benjamin's?
Yeah. No, he's dating one of them. The two twins that play basketball.
Oh
the,
boy,
the Candiver twins. I don't know which one he's dating, 14 or 15, but he's dating one of them, and so they're together now.
That's why you joined the show.
I only know that from the TikToks. And I'm going to lose all my TikTok knowledge here come Sunday because apparently they're getting banned. So no more TikToks for me.
So I'm sure that it would be a pay cut for Mr. Beck to join the NFL versus go to Miami and play, I think, for $3 million this upcoming season, $3 or $4 million. Allegedly. Yeah. If he actually gets it, I don't know.
Allegedly.
He could be like Florida State and never get it. So Notre Dame was able, in a defensive battle, take care of Georgia. Then the Orange Bowl took place, and Notre Dame, going down 10-0, was able to squeak out a win according to 24 points. On the back of 24 points in the second half, Mitch Jeter hits a field goal, and Notre Dame will play for his first championship, make his first championship appearance since 2012, and try to play for its first championship since 1988, I believe, under the direction of Lou Holtz. Joe, what path did Ohio State take? Because it was a little bit more of a less stress path.
Well, I wouldn't say it was less stress. They played Tennessee in the first round, right? Which Tennessee was a good team. They snuck out a win against Alabama. A down year Alabama. Go Irish. Look at this guy already. We haven't even started the show.
Well, I got to preface this. Volunteers fan, so be careful. He's whatever you're about to say, Joe. This is because of this.
No,
I'm just letting you know.
I said, Tennessee had a big win over Alabama this year, and I thought that they had a relatively good season. I think handily, when we're looking at college football right now, there is a pretty big divide, I think, among college football teams and especially their fan bases believing how good their team actually is. And now I'm going to say this: Ohio State lost 2 games this year. One very close game to what was, I think they were the number 3 team in the nation at the time, maybe. I can't remember when they lost to Oregon the first time. Was Oregon number 3?
It was either 2 or 3.
Yeah. And then they lost to a terrible Michigan team, which, you kind of got to throw how good Michigan and Ohio State are out the window when they play each other. Because if you know anything about Ohio State fans, Ohio State could have won 1-11 this year or 1-12 this year, and if their one win was against Michigan, Ohio State fans would be happy. And in Columbus right now, there are still echoes to fire Ryan Day. He's about to play in a national championship game with his Ohio State team, and you could still hear it through the streets of Columbus echoing how Ryan Day should be fired for losing to Michigan 3 years in a row. And I can't say that I totally disagree with that. But, there is this kind of, I think in the world of college football, a misconception in reading your team, or if you're an SEC, if your team that you're a fan of is in the SEC, reading your entire conference and believing that that's just God's gift to college football. I think this year has kind of humbled some of those fans. And I think, honestly, the 2 best teams in the nation are playing in the college football championship on Monday. And the idea that we get to watch Notre Dame and Ohio State play is kind of exciting for me, Ryan, because I know that you're a huge Notre Dame fan. I know your first football game, if I'm not mistaken, was a Notre Dame game. Is that right?
No, my first football game, I wanted to be a Notre Dame game, and my dad said the tickets are too expensive. I'm going to go take you to see the Bengals, and then that's how that love blossomed.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember that exact story. I know we talked about this on our radio show one time, and anyway, and I've always been kind of I wouldn't say that I'm one of the crazy Ohio State fan. Of course, I'm from the state of Ohio. I'm actually a UC fan. But as I was growing up, UC was so god awful that you had to find a team that was relatively close to root for. And of course, Ohio State was mine. So I think it's kind of fitting and fun that, you're a huge Notre Dame fan. I'm an Ohio State fan, and we get to watch them play in the college football playoffs. So, even though I subverted your question about their path to the national championship.
That's okay.
Hey, so go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, after they took care of Tennessee, which was not a contest, they played Oregon, and that was even less of a contest than what they had against.
Which surprised me. Which honestly,
I thought that was
going to be a great game.
I don't think that Ohio State could beat Nicholls State as bad as they beat Oregon.
Yeah.
I mean, that game was 31-0 with 8 minutes to go in the second quarter. Then they played a good Texas team that I think really is disappointing based upon what you thought they would have at quarterback. I think Quinn Ewers, in a lot of people's eyes, not mine, was thought to be a first-round pick, and he was – I would argue that Steve Sarkisian should have pulled the Tua Tagovailoa switch. He should have benched his Jalen Hurts and went with Arch Manning. I thought that gave them the best chance to win.
Well, yeah, and earlier this season when Ewers got hurt a little bit, he missed 2 games, I think, right?
2.5 games, yeah. He played in 3.
Oh, yeah. So I think Manning played pretty well. I thought maybe he had a shot to take it over then. I don't know what's going on over in Texas, obviously, but I don't understand that situation because I haven't thought for the past 2 years Quinn Ewers has been a very serviceable quarterback for them, and obviously you got him to the college football playoffs, and I'm not saying that he's not a good quarterback, but I think we've seen flashes of greatness out of out of one of the Mannings. Obviously, it's in his bloodline, and I don't think that he's gotten a real shot to play
No,
there.
he hasn't yet. And, next year he'll take over as Quinn Ewers goes into the draft. I think what we saw with Quinn Ewers is how good Thomas Jr. and Xavier Worthy are at what they've done in the NFL, especially Brian Thomas at a very terrible Jacksonville Jaguars organization. So he obviously had help. He still has help. Isaiah Bond's a really good wide receiver that will be drafted as well. So the next part of this is how they got here. I want to talk about these teams because, Joe, when I look at Notre Dame, when I look at Ohio State, I'm not going to lie to you. I see a lot of similarities. I mean, I feel like these teams mirror each other so much. You got two of the best two defenses in college football. I mean, literally ranked like 1 and 3. You got offenses that can be really good, but their quarterbacks are very streaky. And we'll go ahead and jump in whichever side of the ball you want to do first. We can either do, one team's offense versus the other team's defense. Is there something that you think you want to lead off with, or?
Well, no, I think, and we could talk about defense and just kind of overshadow it, and I'll tell you, I think the key to this national championship game is defense. Of course, you always hear the old moniker, defense wins championships, and I don't think that's been any more truer than what we're about to witness on Monday. And you're absolutely right. Both offenses are very streaky, and it seems like when them home run plays start coming, those big 30-yard plus plays for both teams, they just keep happening. And of course, Ohio State's got some incredible wide receivers that he's throwing to. I agree, Tanner. I agree. I think we haven't heard the last out of Texas in the next couple of years. But I think you could see that. I think offensively for Notre Dame, obviously, Riley Leonard, with him playing quarterback, they got somebody that could throw the ball down the field 40, 50 yards on a dime consistently. And they also have an extra running back essentially in there because that kid can flat out run. When we're talking about, Ohio State, you got more of a pocket presence there, but still a great passing game. I think at the end of the day, if the defensive secondaries for both teams and the defensive line for Ohio State's key defensively, I think if they can do their jobs and hold their opposing team and have a quality defensive day, that team is going to be successful. And I think really at the end of the day, turnovers are key. I think if you win the turnover battle in this game, your defense does its job, you're probably going to be successful.
Yeah, one thing, we'll start with the Notre Dame offense and then the Ohio State defense. Notre Dame has been put in this. If they don't do this, they can't win. If they don't run the ball, they can't win. If they don't win the turnover battle, they can't win. All those narratives that you typically hear. Well, they lost a turnover battle against Penn State, and they found a way to win, being down 10-0. They couldn't run the ball against Georgia, and the defense ends up putting them in a spot to score their only offensive touchdown at halftime, and then come out to kick off the second half, gets a special teams touchdown. So everything that Notre Dame has been said that they can't do to win, they have. That being said, I don't disagree that the margin with the Notre Dame offense is very, very, very slim. Notre Dame, like Ohio State, has two really good running backs. Jadarian Price is a good, hits the hole, breaks a couple tackles type of runner. But Jeremiah Love is somebody I think we're going to see on Sunday here after next year. Is going to be a monster in the NFL.
He runs hard.
He's hurt right now, so we haven't been able to see the best Jeremiah Love ever since after the USC game. But I mean, he's still that type of guy that breaks 4 tackles against the best defensive line in college football against Penn State and finds a way to get in the end zone. I have much, much, much higher reservation against Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard is somebody that I think Mike Denbrock, after coaching Jaden Daniels last year, at the beginning of the season, tried to use that offense and realized it can't work with Riley Leonard. He's right around a 60% passer. And in today's football landscape, that's not great. Like at Joe Montana's days, that was great. But in today's days, that's not great for what they're scheming up. But what you said is absolutely true, is that he is a hellacious running back that just happens to throw the football.
Now, who is the and his name's escaping me. Their second string, their backup.
Steve Angeli, who came into that game.
And he did, and I just wanted to make a point. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but he came in the game. He's a pocket passing quarterback, and to be honest with you, he looked really good with that offense. He held the pocket, he climbed the pocket when he needed to, and he threw the ball. I still think Riley Leonard gives them the best chance to win, but I mean, I from what I saw, and I haven't watched him much throughout the year, but I think that they could put up offensive production with either one of their quarterbacks in the game.
I think with Riley Leonard, he's more likely to be turnover prone, just because he does not see the field. He's a one read quarterback. That's just all there is to it. And Mike Denbrock has to scheme really, really well. When Notre Dame went down 10-0 against Penn State, I'm not going to lie to you, Joe. I said it's over, because every other time in the Notre Dame offense, it has been. But Mike Denbrock's really, really good. This cat's been around for a long time, and this is his second stint. And he was able to put Riley Leonard in a situation to succeed. And Steve Angeli, you're right. I mean, Steve Angeli is the guy that almost scored 40 points in their bowl game last year in his only start, for Notre Dame. But when I look at the defense for Ohio State, this is the best defense Notre Dame will have faced all year. And that was Penn State last week, and they struggled for a half of football. And now they're going to play the best defense that they have. I mean, Simon is a monster. The safeties are monsters. The defensive line's maybe not as good as Penn State, but it's like 1A, 1B. The linebackers for Ohio State are really good. I think that the best place to beat Ohio State is on the corners. Their corners have a ton of penalties. They're very physical. They hold a lot. They get a lot of pass interferences. But a lot of times, Joe, it doesn't matter, because the linebackers and defensive line get to the quarterback, and it just hasn't made a difference enough for them to struggle. When they did struggle against Oregon, those cornerbacks got ate up, but they put the foot on the gas pedal so hard the second time they played, it didn't matter by that point. But that being said, Notre Dame's biggest weakness is getting the ball to this outside wide receivers. They don't really have a huge playmaker. Jordan Faison's solid, but he's not a playmaker in my opinion. So the biggest weakness for Ohio State would be Notre Dame capitalizing on its biggest weakness, and that's throwing the football consistently.
I mean, I think if you can do that, I think you're missing kind of I wouldn't say you're missing a key point. I think one place that I have seen opposing teams against Ohio State have success is with scrambling quarterbacks. Somebody that can get out of the pocket, get outside the tackle boxes, and get upfield. And I think Riley Leonard has the ability to do that. I don't know if that's their game plan.
He did run 15 times against Georgia.
Yeah, so I would say that I don't think probably the best option for that offense, if that's me sitting in that situation, would say let's take our quarterback that has a 58-60% pass completion rate and start throwing the ball to the corners downfield on Ohio State. I think that they need to – I actually think that their best game plan offensively is to play small ball and control the clock. I think if they can control the tempo of the game, not let Ohio State's offense on the field as much as they want to be, stay away from them momentum shifting, 40, 50-yard plays that Ohio State's known for, I think they can make a game out of it. I think if they come out and they go 3 and out the first 2 or 3 times on the field, and Ohio State gets up with a 2-score lead, I think that game's pretty much over from there. And you've seen that through Ohio State's season. Now, I will say Ohio State plays just a ridiculous NAIA basically schedule at the beginning of the season. It shouldn't even count. Their first 4 games shouldn't even go toward their record, because I think it's absolutely ridiculous who they're playing. But in the games that they've won, And I didn't look this stat up, but they may have the biggest margin of victory in their wins in college football this year, because they've absolutely demolished people. Because it seems like when momentum goes their way, they're just running all over the field.
That was an accident. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say he already said that. So, yeah, I think Notre Dame, if they can control the clock, they can control the game, they can control the tempo of the game. I think that would go a long way for their success. I think they got to do everything they can to keep Ohio State off the field. And if they could put together 8-9 minute drives, those drives that go 15, 16, 17 plays for 75 yards, that's the best thing that they can do. And I hope and I would think that their coaches are game planning for that. So, but at the end of the day, they are playing one of the best defensive lines in all of college football, and that can go sideways very quick. Playing that small, because you got to have momentum in the running game and the clock control game too. And if you're not going anywhere, then that forces you to throw the ball, and then that's when the turnovers start coming. And you don't want that to happen either.
No, and I think you hit the nail on the head on where, and a lot of people would say this, but I think it's true. The trenches are going to be where this game is lost and won. If Notre Dame can control the line of scrimmage with its run game, then they have an amazing chance to win, because that just opens up their offense so well. On the other side of it, Ohio State, really healthy on their defensive line, is going against a Notre Dame team that just now, with Anthony Knapp not playing, has lost its fourth starter on the offensive line. Notre Dame's not healthy. Let me just get that out there. Notre Dame has had to piece together this offensive line, but that same piece together offensive line may have found something, because it was way better in the second half against Penn State than it was against their traditional starters that they've been using for the last 3 games. So if Ohio State can get pressure, Riley Leonard's not the type of guy, Joe, that's going to read your defense, audible into the correct play, and say, this is how we beat them. That's not Riley Leonard. He's a one-look quarterback. If Notre Dame can't get a running game going, it's going to be really, really difficult. And I just don't think Notre Dame has the offense to make this a shootout. If Notre Dame can score 28 points, I think they win. If Ohio State scores 28 points, that might be the first half. That's the difference in these offenses. Right. You asked about scoring margin. The scoring margin, Ohio State is third in the country at 23.6. Notre Dame is fourth at 22.7.
Okay. I knew Ohio State. I wasn't sure that Notre Dame was quite that high, but
you there, Joe?
At Elon Musk in the snow, it doesn't miss Starlink is not it doesn't like the snow.
Yeah. So again, these stats. I'm telling you, just the way I look at these teams. You go, if you look at defensive points per game, Ohio State number 1 in the country, number 2 Notre Dame. There's just so many similarities between these. These two teams, they marry each other in a lot. But I'm going to go to the other side, where Ohio State's offense will play against Notre Dame's defense. And I think this is where Ohio State has quite a bit of advantage in personnel. Maybe not against Notre Dame's defense, but overall personnel-wise, this is why I think Ohio State is a better team top to bottom than Notre Dame. And it's because of their outside playmakers. Buka's still there. They got Smith that's still there. Trayvon Henderson's a monster. Quinshon Judkins is a monster. You got 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs that can absolutely dominate games, Joe. And the same thing that Ohio State or that Notre Dame needs to do, Ohio State's going to try to do the same thing, and that's dominate the trenches and get their 2 running backs the ball and try to have success.
And they will be able to do that, I think. And that's and on the other hand of that, I just said Notre Dame needs to control the clock. And it's not typically or has not been Ohio State style of play to really do that, because they look for big hitters. That's their offense. That's what they love to do. That's what Ryan Day loves to do. But they also, and we've seen it at times this season, we saw it against Texas. They're able to control the clock as well. So they can play that game too. And that's where when you talk about that golden two, you hear about that a lot in football, that 2-score lead, that cushion that you want. I think if Ohio State gets up 2 scores in this game, it's over, because I think that their defense can do what they need to do, but offensively, they have the ability with their running game to control the clock as well. And if they're able to get up those 2 scores, I think that that's what they'll do for the rest of the game. Which is going to make it very difficult, because they can move the sticks with their running game and take time off the clock just as good as anybody in the country. So I think Notre Dame really has to do everything they can to ensure to keep that within a 1-score game, and make it a game in the fourth quarter, because if they go in the locker room down 14, 17 points, Notre Dame, I don't think the second half that they're going to have success coming back from that.
No, and traditionally Notre Dame never has. I mean, when we think of what Notre Dame's done in these big games, it's not had the offense to compete with the other teams.
Right.
They were completely mismatched against the 2012 Alabama teams in the playoffs here recently. It's not that the defense hasn't done a whole lot. They held a Clemson team to, I think, 24 points, which was the playoff low. Then they destroyed Alabama. It's been the offense that hasn't been able to keep up. So I agree with that. And to your point, when it comes about Ohio State, think about that Texas game. They get a 75-yard screen pass to Henderson. He takes it for a touchdown. The next time they get the ball, 14 plays all the way down the field. They can do what they want when the things are clicking. That doesn't mean they always click, but Ohio State has shown, that's why they had one of the highest margins of victory in all of college football, that when things are going right, they go right. I look at the 2 running backs and I look at the offensive line and say that's where it begins. Unfortunately for Notre Dame, most of their injuries have been at the defensive line. They lost Riley Mills. Howard Cross has been hurt quite a bit. Boubacar Traore is out. So you're looking at a defense that is really damn good, really damn young, that's going to have guys that have to step up. I thought against Penn State that was the worst tackling performance that they had all year. That is very unlike what we've seen from Notre Dame's defense. They can't do the same against Judkins and Henderson, because they won't win. Nick Singleton's really good, but these 2 guys are better than Nick Singleton in my mind.
All right.
So on the outside, though, Notre Dame's coming off a game, Joe, where a single wide receiver didn't have a catch in the entire game. And that's because that's their biggest strength, their secondary. I don't worry nearly as much, because only one team, USC, has really been able to move the ball vertically against them. Not saying that it can't happen, but I think that if Notre Dame can control the trenches, you're going to see Al Golden, hopefully for us Bengals fans, the next defensive coordinator in Cincinnati, dial up some pressures and make Will Howard nervous in the pocket. And I think as an offensive coordinator, you agree that if your quarterback is not comfortable, then your offense won't be comfortable. And that's where Notre Dame can switch things up by making Will Howard have to make plays. And traditionally, when Will Howard's had to put the team on his back, had to make those big plays, he hasn't been nearly effective versus teams having to worry about that run game, and then he just sits back there like a statue and picks you apart.
Right. Well, and I will say this: the one game during the season that I felt like, the game was on the line, and that was the first time they played Oregon, and Will Howard was put in a spot, and I don't know if you remember that game, but essentially he didn't throw the ball, and it's like, what are you doing? Yep. And you're absolutely right. I don't think that, and I think there's a lot to be said with how Notre Dame has got to the championship game. They've had to play football. Ohio State's had to play football one time in the college football playoffs, and that was last week. Their first 2 games were just a wash. They really weren't even worth watching. At least against Texas last week, that was a little bit of a football game, Notre Dame's had to fight to get there. And, football is a game of momentum, and if we set everything aside when we talk about talent on the field and the athletes and the recruitment between these two programs, when you set everything aside and you talk about momentum and investment to be where they're at, and I'm not saying that Ohio State's not invested in where they're at. Obviously, they've fought, they put together a program to get there, and they're playing in the national championship game. But make no mistake, Notre Dame has earned their spot the last 3 weeks in this championship game. And there's a lot to be said for that. And there's a lot to be said in a football player's heart about the fight that it took to get there. They think they can beat anybody. And that's half the battle. The mental game's half the battle going into a football game. And I think that Notre Dame's there and they believe that they can win this national championship game. And sometimes that's all you really need.
I think I agree with you 100% that, like I said earlier, Notre Dame has had to put to bed all the narratives. There's just one left. Does Notre Dame have the ability to win it all? That's the only thing they haven't answered for the last going on almost 40 years now, Joe. It's hard to believe. But going on 40 years, Notre Dame has not had the ability to win it all.
1988, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the one big question. That's the biggest question in sports. I look at long-term legacy. Every big coach, Bob Davies, not Bob Davies, excuse me. Bob Davies was a solid coach, but Newt Rockne, Lou Holtz, and now Marcus Freeman all played in the national championship game in their third year. That's wild. It's hard to believe. Two of them won it beforehand. And Marcus Freeman at 38 years old, somebody you know well, that was the defensive coordinator that got amazing talent to the University of Cincinnati when he was there during his tenure at UC.
Yeah.
He has transformed as a defensive coordinator into a head coach this year. The Marcus Freeman that lost to Northern Illinois is not the same Marcus Freeman that's here today, because I think he finally said, I can't control all of it. I need to put all this trust in my coordinators and my players. And I think you've seen that maturation and that transformation into what can make a really, really good head coach for the next decades to come. Ryan Day, you mentioned earlier. Would you be surprised if he won and left?
Yeah.
You'd be surprised if he left?
Why would you leave Ohio State?
Same reason everybody's left Ohio State here recently. Like, it's just – you mentioned it. They're literally people don't like Ryan Day. Like, they put their season on Michigan.
But head coaches don't leave Ohio State. Urban Meyer retired for a year, then went to the NFL. Tressel was there forever, Ryan Day obviously took over for that's like an Alabama job. When you talk, that's an Alabama, that's a Georgia, that's the Ohio State University. He's not gonna, as long as they're paying him a paycheck, he's not gonna leave. And then obviously, I don't know if you're probably not invested in Ohio State or look into it as much, but when he lost the game against Michigan and those ridiculous comments were coming out to fire Ryan Day, and make no mistake, those are ridiculous comments. I think what's his record over the last 5 years? It's something insane. He's lost like 4 games or 5 games, in 5 years. It's, but the talk was if they had fired him at the end of this season, they still owed him like $37 million, and the boosters pay part of that at Ohio State, from what I understand. So, I don't think the boosters are going to let him go, and he's certainly not going to walk away from $37 million. So. I don't think he leaves. I would be very surprised. I don't think Ohio State is a program that you leave from once you get the job there, unless you're fired,
or unless you're just tired of people saying you should be fired because you don't beat one team, and a game that means literally less than it's ever going to mean because of a 12-team playoff.
Now, I will say this. I think Ryan Day is able to win at Ohio State because he's at Ohio State. I think you put Ryan Day at a Wisconsin, or you put him, at an Indiana. You put him at another program. I don't believe he is that great of a head football coach. I think he's able to win because of what he has and the recruiting that he has at Ohio State that gives him
He's
the
a hell of
ability.
a recruiter. Okay.
Yeah, and he is a good recruiter, and I think that that's why he wins football games. His talent overcomes his deficit as a head football coach, I think, in my opinion. And of course, but who am I? I mean, I'm sitting here, doing a Wednesday night show on YouTube, talking about one of the most successful college football coaches and kind of talking shit about one of the most successful college football coaches in the country. So
I
that's
think
just my
I
opinion
think
and
it's
my
fair
thought.
criticism.
So, but no, I don't think he leaves. No matter what happens in this game. So
Okay.
I think he stays there as long as they keep paying him a paycheck.
I I think that there's a chance that he could. It wouldn't be surprising to me that a place that does not respect him doesn't get to keep him. Because I just feel like you said, you look at Ryan Day's resume and stack it up with anybody but Nick Saban's and uh, uh, Clemson's head coach Dabo Sweeney over the last few years, maybe a little bit of a Kirby Smart. That's it. Like those are the guys, and Dabo's received a little bit of flack, but he's also won championships. It almost feels like Ryan Day is just not given remotely close the credit he deserves to get to this point. And in football, Joe, it's so freaking hard to be consistent year in, year out. What Nick Saban does is once in a lifetime. We may never see something like that ever again. And I just, like Notre Dame fans always or people against Notre Dame are like, yeah, they just don't want it big. I'm like, guys, there's like 5 teams that have a chance to win it every single year. And this is why they always get it right at the end, because the true teams rise to the top. Say college basketball. There's a team that just may get hot and rise to the top. College football, the true champion always rises, and you just have to give yourself a chance to play for it. And Ryan Day does that every single
This isn't 1998 Gonzaga.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that Ryan Day is never going to lose the moniker that he's playing with the team that Urban Meyer built, which is kind of ridiculous to say at this point because there's nobody left there from the Urban Meyer era. Did he inherit the team the next year that went to the college football playoffs? Probably, yeah. But he's had to build and sustain the program since then. And I think that's overlooked. But I think he's in that shadow, and being in a shadow of somebody who has won a national championship at that school, their last national championship in 2016, I might add, which I'm going to say something here in a minute. I didn't know if you realized, but he wins the national championship.
with Cardale Jones?
Well, they went through, if you remember, they went through 3 quarterbacks that year in the playoffs. So they all got hurt, but yes. So they win a national championship, and Ryan Day is obviously an assistant coach there. He's in the spotlight of Urban Meyer and will be until he wins his own national championship, which could be Monday. Now, I will say this: if you didn't realize this, so the first college football playoffs was in 2016. Is that right? 2015.
It's something we're almost 10 years into. I know that.
I think it was.
I don't want to say it's.
It was 2016. First year, Ohio State wins it. Their last national championship game, or their last national championship win. Look ahead 9 years down the road, 10 years down the road. The first year that they expand to a 12-team playoffs, Ohio State's in the national championship game. So I think, and this is probably sad music to your ears, I think it's probably destiny that they win on Monday, and then it'll be another decade before they get back there. But that's just a little trivia knowledge I'm throwing at you, and if you didn't realize that.
In 2014.
In 2014, okay.
The first year.
So it's been 10 years, 11 years since they'd been there, and that was the first college football playoffs, if you remember.
Yep. And these two teams have played each other. This will be the third time in 3 years, and they had a home and home. Notre Dame didn't have the offense to come out top both times.
Well,
go ahead and get.
Last year they gave the game away, if you remember, because they played.
Oh, I remember.
They played the final play with 10 people on the field.
Oh, don't even. That's way worse than that. It was 4th and 19, and they converted 4th and 19 before they got to the 10 people on the field. Trust me, I hit the bar so hard that the tap came off of the bar and made Guinness run on to the true story at an Irish pub in Indianapolis. So, damn it, Joe, don't bring that up. That being said, these two teams have played each other. They've played each other close, and I think the reason why is because they've looked at each other in the mirror and say, this is who we are. This is what we want to be. I see the same exact thing, and I see Ohio State is still more talented. I'm not going to take that away. In my mind, it's Notre Dame's destiny to win this game. I think that they do, 28-27. I think we have a hellacious game. If it's a blowout, it's going to be Ohio State because they're able to score. Notre Dame won't be able to. I could see them, easily winning this game 35-14 if Notre Dame doesn't find a way to move the ball offensively. So I think this game's going to be close. If Ohio State scores more than 4 touchdowns, Notre Dame loses. I just don't see. I don't see a path where that happens. But if this game's low scoring, I think Notre Dame has a chance. And I think with Marcus Freeman continues the coaching lineage of winning his national championship in his third year of coaching. And I think that the 2 coordinators are the reason why. Mike Denbrock, Al Golden, 2 of the best coordinators in college football, have helped mentor to get Marcus Freeman here to where he is today. And I hope for you fans, you get as good of a game as what I'm expecting that we'll see on Monday night.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. I think the over-under right now is 46.5. Last time I looked at it. Ohio State's favored by 8.5 in the game. I would say if the over-under's not met at 46.5, I think we're looking at a really good football game. I think if the over is met and we go above 47 points, 46.5 points, we hit 47 points combined, I think then you are looking at a 35, 14 game at that point. So if you're a Notre Dame fan, I think you're cheering for the under. If you're an Ohio State fan, you're cheering for the over because that means a lot of scoring, and that means that Notre Dame's not going to be able to keep up. So that's where I'm at. I'm hoping for a good game. I hope it's a nail biter. I hope it comes down to a last-second field goal. So, and the Notre Dame kicker's got some experience with that, so we'll see how that goes. And that's why I'm just hoping for a really good game. I'm not really too invested in it. Like I said, I'm an Ohio State fan, but I'm one of those guys that I'm a college football fan in general. I won't say that I'm a Notre Dame fan, but I think it would be cool to see them win.
I have never seen my team win a championship. This is the only guy I've ever seen win a championship.
Now he can't win at all.
Exactly. Now he can't win at all. So I'm hoping for the first time in my life at 30, going on 35 years old, that I get to see my team win a championship. It's going to be hard. I think you nailed it right at the beginning of the show, Joe. These are the 2 best teams in college football. And I think that, this has a chance to be one of those all-time games. And if Notre Dame doesn't win, I'll be disappointed, but I'll be like Marcus Freeman setting the foundation to be competitive for a very long time. And if Ohio State wins, Ryan Day, like you said, can finally get out of that shadow and be Coach Ryan Day, not pupil of Urban Meyer Ryan Day.
Right.
And finally be able to start his own legacy, and he deserves that.
I know, I agree. I did have one question. I was hoping I didn't forget this for you, and I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on it. Obviously, we've now experienced the first year of the 12-team playoffs. Do you think that expanding from 4 teams to 12 teams was the right call, or is that too many? If looking at what we've seen, so we've seen the 2 extremes. We've seen 4 teams where teams were obviously left out that should have been in. When we talk about who got left out last year, that it was just Miami, not Miami.
No, Florida State got left
Florida
out
State
because
got
all their
left out.
all their players were hurt.
Yeah. So you talk about teams getting left out last year with the 14 playoff. You talk about 12 teams making it in this year. Obviously, that first round, we saw some just terrible football games. Do you think the 12 teams was the right call, or should it be 8 teams? Where are you at with that?
100% thought it should have been 8 teams the entire time.
I agree.
I personally, if you want to just trim the fat and dollars and TV don't mean anything, it should be 6 teams. I could get behind 8 and give 4 teams a bye, and then the other 4 teams have to play. But I said it earlier. There's usually 5 teams in football with a realistic chance of winning the national championship, and I believe that wholeheartedly. And I don't think that it's a mistake in college football who wins the championship every single year. I can't say that for basketball. I can't say that for almost any sport besides football. In football, the cream rises to the top. You don't need to add more teams because the other times we get to truly see how much better the best team in college football, best 2 teams in college football are compared to everybody else.
No, I agree, and I'm right there with you. I think 8 teams is probably the right amount there. I know at this point when we're looking at 12 teams, when you look at a team like Ohio State or Notre Dame or really any other team that would be in this position right now, when you're talking about playing 4 games into the national championship or your national championship being your 4th game of the college football playoffs, that's asking a lot of athletes, and I know that they're young athletes, but the cream rises to the top. You're absolutely right, Ryan. But as long as that's a healthy cream, and 4 football games is a lot of football games to keep everybody healthy and so yep. It's like a whole separate season almost, and 3 games, that is what it is. 4 games, I think that's a little much. So.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame's always going to have to play 4 games unless they decide to get into a conference. So.
And that's not happening. So don't start that shit. Joe, I want to thank you for joining me, man. That was a great conversation. Hopefully everybody that tunes in enjoys it. And, we're going to do more Stuck in the Nosebleeds as the year goes on. And we'll definitely have a ton of NASCAR news coming your way as we get ready for the Daytona 500. And, Joe, on Saturday, you'll see if Kyle Larson can find himself a golden driller at the at the Chili Bowl. So appreciate you joining me. So that's going to wrap it up here, guys. Thanks again. My name is Ryan Peters with Joe Spillman. This has been an episode of Stuck in the Nosebleed.